Rome didn't fall in a day, and it fell in a heartbeat that lasted centuries. Beneath the marble and the glory, beneath the legions and the laurels, the world's greatest empire slowly unraveled. Not with a scream, but with a whisper. Imagine the eternal city at its height. Gold-clad temples, markets overflowing with silk and spices, citizens confident that Rome would last forever. And yet, behind those walls, something was breaking. When the Visigoths finally breached the gates in 410 AD, the shock was cosmic. Rome, the invincible, had been violated, but the truth is more complex. The empire wasn't destroyed by swords alone. It was rotting from within long before any barbarian crossed the frontier. Greed, corruption, overexpansion, spiritual decay, these were the silent assassins. And as the empire stretched across 3 continents, its heart began to hollow. This is not the story of ruins and relics. It's the story of how a civilization lost itself, piece by piece, choice by choice, until one morning, the sun rose over a world that no longer belonged to Rome. In the 1st century AD, Rome was unstoppable. A single language, a single law, a single power dominating the known world. Roads stitched continents together like veins of empire. The Mediterranean, Mare Nostrum, our sea, was Rome's private highway. But success breeds blindness. The empire became addicted to its own expansion. Each conquest funded the next. Gold from Gaul paid the legions in Germania. Wheat from Egypt fed the mobs in Rome. Slaves built monuments, fought in arenas, and kept the machine turning. Behind this brilliance lay a paradox. The more Rome conquered, the weaker it became. Its wealth created comfort. Comfort dulled vigilance. And the empire that once prided itself on discipline began to drown in luxury. Historians call it the law of diminishing returns of empire. Every victory demanded more soldiers, more taxes, more bureaucracy, until the cost outweighed the reward. The machine that conquered the world had built the blueprint for its own collapse. Rome's greatest enemy was not the barbarian, it was inflation. By the 3rd century, silver coins were barely silver at all. The denarius, once pure, had been debased to pay endless armies. The empire printed money the way it built roads, relentlessly. Prices soared, soldiers demanded more pay, farmers abandoned their fields. The economy spiraled. To survive, emperors taxed the provinces mercilessly. Cities that once thrived under Roman protection began to hate their masters. The empire became a parasite feeding on itself. Meanwhile, the frontier burned. Germanic tribes tested the borders not yet to destroy Rome, but to survive the chaos Rome itself had unleashed. And yet, even then, most Romans still believed the empire was eternal. If you want to keep exploring how great civilizations rise and fall, then subscribe to Mysteries of the World. Each episode uncovers the hidden forces shaping history itself. The crisis of the 3rd century was a nightmare. In just 50 years, Rome saw more than 20 emperors, most dying violently. Civil war became routine. Armies no longer fought for Rome, they fought for whoever promised them gold. Emperor Diocletian tried to fix the chaos by dividing the empire into 2 halves, East and West, ruled by co-emperors. It worked, for a time. But division planted the seed of final collapse. The Western Empire grew poorer. The Eastern Empire, centered in Constantinople, grew rich, fortified, and self-interested. By saving itself, the East doomed the West. When Diocletian retired to his palace in Croatia, he said, "If you knew how well I live here, you'd never call me back to politics." It was the sound of power giving up, the sound of a man who preferred a garden to a collapsing empire. Rome forgot what made it Rome, the virtues that had built the republic, discipline, duty, sacrifice that it gave way to spectacle. Bread and circuses replaced courage and service. The Colosseum roared while the frontier crumbled. Politicians bought loyalty with entertainment. The citizen became a spectator. Luxury was everywhere. Villas with heated floors, fountains pouring wine, slaves from every land. But comfort has a cost. It breeds fragility. The philosopher Seneca warned of this centuries earlier. Softness comes when the soul forgets struggle. By the 4th century, the empire was filled with soft souls commanding hard men. And the hard men were no longer Romans. They were Goths, Huns, Franks, and Vandals, mercenaries hired to protect an empire that no longer believed in itself. As Rome weakened, a new force rose: Christianity. Once persecuted, it became the empire's official religion under Constantine. It united millions, but it also split the Roman soul in 2. The old gods of Rome had been pragmatic, gods of war, commerce, harvest. They demanded action. The new faith turned inward, toward humility, peace, and salvation. The energy that once built roads and armies now built cathedrals and monasteries. The empire's focus shifted from conquering the world to saving the soul. Spiritually, this was an awakening. Politically, it was a fracture. The emperor no longer ruled alone. He ruled alongside a power older than the state, the church. Rome's unity had depended on one empire, one law, one identity. Now its people answered to heaven more than to Caesar. The empire's body still lived, but its spirit had already left. For centuries, Rome called them barbarians. Yet by the 5th century, they were no longer outsiders. They were part of the empire's DNA. Goths served in the army. Vandals traded grain. Huns were paid in gold not to attack. Rome wasn't conquered, and it was absorbed by the very peoples it despised. In 376 AD, the Visigoths crossed the Danube seeking refuge from the Huns. Rome accepted them, but treated them with cruelty. Hungry and humiliated, the Goths revolted. At Adrianople in 378, they annihilated a Roman army and killed Emperor Valens. It was the first time in 700 years that a Roman emperor died in battle against foreigners. From that moment, the illusion was gone. Rome had met its mirror, and its mirror was stronger, hungrier, freer. By the late 5th century, the empire was a shadow. Italy was ruled by generals, not senators. The treasury was empty. The legions were mercenaries loyal to whoever paid them. In 476 AD, a Germanic commander named Odoacer marched into Rome and deposed the boy emperor Romulus Augustulus. No bloodshed, no drama, just a quiet resignation. The Western Roman Empire was over. But what few realize is that it didn't fall in defeat. It transitioned. The church inherited Rome's authority. The Eastern Empire, later called Byzantium, preserved its laws and language. Even the barbarians adopted Roman customs, titles, and faith. Rome didn't die. It mutated into Europe. If this story of transformation fascinates you, support our work. Subscribe, comment, and share. Every action helps us bring these lost lessons of history to light. So how did the Roman Empire really collapse? Not through invasion, not through religion, not even through decadence alone. Rome fell because it stopped adapting. Its systems grew too big to evolve, its citizens too entitled to serve, its leaders too short-sighted to see beyond their reign. The empire that once absorbed others could no longer absorb change. Civilizations don't die when enemies arrive. They die when memory fades, when the people forget why they built in the first place. And yet, Rome lives on in our laws, our architecture, our languages, even our idea of empire. Every superpower since has worn its ghost like a crown and a curse. Perhaps the real question isn't how Rome fell, but when will we realize we are following the same path? Rome's ruins still stand because its dream never really ended. Walk through the Forum at dawn and you can feel it. The hum of ambition, the echo of power. Stone remembers what men forget. Empires rise when they believe in a shared destiny. They fall when that belief turns into entitlement. The collapse of Rome was not a tragedy. It was a mirror, reflecting the timeless law that no civilization, however brilliant, is immune to decay. Every empire dies twice, first in its foundations, then in its faith. The first death is invisible, the second is unforgettable, and so Rome whispers across the centuries, not as a warning, but as a truth. The greatest danger to power is not the enemy outside, it's the comfort within.